Hey, what is up YouTube? This is the Merman Master coming at you guys from the Team Time Riders YouTube channel today with another character deck from Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. And this character deck is a very obscure one. Belonged to a character by the name of Titan, who appeared in a couple of episodes. But his main kind of thing was that he appeared in episode 6 to duel Alexis in some kind of fake shadow game or something at the abandoned dorm. And he doesn't really appear too much in the series after that. However, I do believe he may or may not have come back as one of the Shadow Riders. But for those of you guys who are aware, he played a chessboard Archfiend deck. And for those of you guys who have watched the Queen's Gambit on Netflix, you know chess is all of the rage right now. So I just thought I'd do this nice little bonus deck profile for all of you guys. And I really hope you all enjoy it. Now, starting things off, we're going to start things here with one copy of Terror King Archfiend. Now, one of the things about chessboard Archfiends is that they all have different effects. So all of them have an effect that you can roll a six-sided die when the Archfiend is targeted and negate an effect that your opponent activates that targets the card. In addition, during each one of your standby phases, you must pay a certain number of life points, anything above like 500 life points or so, in order to keep that monster on the field. Otherwise, the card is automatically destroyed. And then they each have different other effects, like a third separate effect that is activated. But they share the life point payment, and then they also share the targeting negation effect between them all. Terror King is the king of all the Archfiends, and he can only be normal, flipped, or special summoned when you have another Archfiend monster on your side of the field, so it's good to have him in here at just one copy. Any more than that, and he does have the possibility to break in your hand. And then when he attacks your opponent, basically negates the monsters that he destroys by battle. So very good. Next card we've got is one copy of Infernal Queen Archfiend. You have to pay 500 attack or 500 life points during the standby phase to keep her around, and then she will boost any Archfiend monster on your side of the field by 1,000 points during during your standby phase. Next, we're running 3 copies of this card, the strongest of the Archfiends that you can normal summon. This is Shadow Knight Archfiend, and his special ability allows you to negate an effect if the result is 3. So basically, certain Archfiends you can negate if the result is 2 or 5 on your die, and some of them you can only negate if the result is 3. You know, you're not really going to try and use these guys for negation results, but it is kind of fun when you get that die roll effect off and you can negate like a powerful card that your opponent activated to try and get the card off the field. Very cool. So it can be surprising to your opponent. But Shadow Knight only inflicts half damage, which you don't really care about because you have him in here because he's a big beater and has a lot of attack power. Next card we've got in here are 2 copies of Dark Bishop Archfiend. The thing that sets him apart and the reason why he was a rare while the rest of these guys are commons is because he is, he has a 500 life point standby phase cost, whereas your Shadow Knight Archfiend has a 900 point cost. And do note as well, guys, sometimes your opponent is going to take these guys off the board, so you don't even really have to pay the life point upkeep cost to keep them around because they're going to be disappearing pretty fast with the rate that the rate and speed that the game is going. But the main difference that sets Dark Bishop apart is that his blanket protection, where you roll a 6-sided die, and if the result is a 1, 3, or 6, negate the effect and destroy the opponent's card. So not only does he have the most blanket protection, but he also provides that protection to any Archfiend monster you control. So if you have Dark Bishop on the field and you also have Terror King, no matter what die roll you roll, if it's anything but a 4, you're automatically going to negate the opponent's effect because Terror King has 2 and 5, and Dark Bishop has 1, 3, and 6. So basically having these guys on the field allows you to pretty much like cover most of your bases, which is kind of cool. The next card, one of my personal favorite Archfiends in the deck is 2 copies of Deathstroke Archfiend, and while he can only negate if there's a 3, the best thing to have him in here is for his hand effect, which when a Terror King Archfiend is sent to the graveyard, you can discard this guy from your hand to special summon that Terror King Archfiend right back to the board. But do note, guys, that if it goes to the grave and Terror King's the only thing, he was the only thing on your board, you can't activate Deathstroke's effect to discard him from your hand to the graveyard and revive Terror King back to the board. The final chess piece Archfiend we've got here is Vile Pawn Archfiend, who also has the negate 3 effect. But what he does that's really, really interesting is he can redirect attacks to himself. So that's going to do it for your chessboard Archfiends. Now we have a couple of other Archfiends in the deck. I know there's a lot of new ones, but I wanted to keep this deck as old as I possibly could. So put those over here. Next cards we've got are 2 copies of Imprisoned Queen Archfiend. Now, when she comes to the board, she doesn't really have any of the same kind of blanket protection. However, if she's in the graveyard during the standby phase and Pandemonium is on your field, you can target an Archfiend monster you control during your standby phase, and or any level 4 or lower fiend type monster, and have that monster gain 1,000 attack. And the best thing about it is that it's not a once per turn effect, which means that if you have both of your Imprisoned Queen Archfiends in the graveyard, you can stack the damage, which is super, super cool. So you can get a Terror King Archfiend up to 4,000 attack, which is a lot of fun. Now, the ace monster of Titan is here. It is 1 copy of Skull Archfiend of Lightning. Now, this is probably the best Archfiend of all of them, and he came out way, way later, I believe, in Dark Crisis. But basically, he's like Summon Skull, basically allowing you to pay 500 life points during each of your standby phase to get that upkeep cost up. And then if you roll a 1, 3, or 6, you can negate and destroy a card. So he's kind of got the Dark Bishop effect, but is a lot stronger than Dark Bishop. But he does not protect. He does not protect the rest of your Archfiends. So something to note. Now, moving on, 1 copy of Archfiend Cavalry. This is the only brand new Archfiend card in here. Basically, if it's destroyed by a card effect and sent to your grave, you can target an Archfiend monster in your graveyard except for Archfiend Cavalry and special summon that monster. So great way to get Imprisoned Queen Archfiend back onto your board, which is very, very cool. You can also combine this together with your Archfiend's Roar, revive it from your graveyard, and then it gets destroyed during the end phase, allowing you to revive any Archfiend monster that you want. Last effect monster that we have in the deck for the Archfiends is 1 copy of Archfiend of Gilfer. When he's sent to the graveyard, any way, shape, or form, target a monster your opponent controls, equip the target with this card, and that monster loses 500 attack power. Now, that's it for the effect Archfiends. Now, for normal ones, we've got 1 copy of Archfiend Soldier, a nice 1900 beater, and we have 3 copies of the great Summon Skull, who, after the fact, was actually declared an Archfiend monster because his original name is literally Archfiend in the Japanese version. I think he's just called Demon. So very, very good thing to have in there. We've also got 1 copy of the Earl of Demise in here for a little bit of extra beat stick power. And that's going to do it for our normals. Now moving on to the other monsters we got 1 copy of Emissary of Pandemonium. Really, really nice piece there. You're not really doing any tuning in the deck as well, but he can bring himself to the field pretty easily as well. And then we have 2 copies of Pandemonium Watchbear. Now, this card is very, very interesting because basically what when it's on the field, Pandemonium cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. So very, very good card to have when trying to stop your opponent from destroying all of your different Archfiend monsters. We also have 1 copy of 3-Headed Wolf. If there's another face-up fiend-type monster on your side of the field, or should I say Twin-Headed Wolf, you can negate the effect of flip effect monsters destroyed by this card in battle, which is something that it kind of shares with Terror King Archfiend. 1 copy of Wall of Illusion bounces any monster that your opponent attacks into it back to their hand. And finally, 1 copy of Flash Assailant, who loses 400 attack for every card in your hand. So fewer cards you got in your hand, the higher his attack points end up being. Now, onto the spells. Wouldn't be an Archfiend deck without 2 copies of Pandemonium. Now, this card was way, way ahead of its time. Basically, any time that an Archfiend monster is destroyed and sent to the grave, you can basically allows you to search any Archfiend monster that you want with a lower level from your deck to your hand. So a lot of modern Archfiend decks that were built actually were running a couple of copies of Pandemonium, because you can trigger destruction effects very easily in those decks. And the search effect is not once per turn, which means that you can keep destroying and keep searching. And if there ever comes out some really, really good Archfiends way far in the future, Pandemonium could find itself being a very, very broken card down the line. In addition, when it's on the field, you also don't have to pay the Archfiend upkeep costs if you do not want to. So that's one of those things that you have to note. But do note, guys, that this will also negate the destruction effects, which means the only way that your Archfiends are getting destroyed is by some kind of card effect. Now, we've got an Ultimate Titan card that was also technically used by Yugi. This is Makyu, the Magical Mist. If you have a face-up Summon Skull on your side of the field, you can destroy all monsters your opponent controls with defense less than or equal to the attack of that Summon Skull. And you cannot conduct your battle phase during the turn you activate this effect, but this is a really nice board wipe, field removal kind of effect that you can use for very, very good effect. It's technically also supposed to go with Skull Archfiend of Lightning, but since that's also a fiend, you can't really use it for that. 2 copies of Checkmate. Of course, you always got to have that Checkmate in here for those chessboard Archfiends, guys. You can tribute an Archfiend monster on your side of the field, and a Terror King Archfiend you control can attack your opponent's life points directly. So, as I mentioned, this is super good. If you boost up a Terror King Archfiend monster's attack power with Imprisoned Queen Archfiend, and then you activate Checkmate to tribute an Archfiend that you don't need, and swing in directly on your opponent for a lot of damage. Speaking of cards that are really, really interesting for Archfiends, is a copy of Falling Down. What this card does is that when you control an Archfiend card, you can take control of one of your opponent's monsters that is equipped, and you take 800 points of damage during each of your opponent's standby phases. So this is basically a snatch steal for Archfiends, which is super, super cool, and definitely something to consider when building your Archfiend deck in the future. And the final spell card we've got is 1 copy of Yugioh Drakemord. Any monster equipped with this card cannot attack, and this will destroy the monster that is equipped at the end of the second turn, excuse me, guys, after the player controlling that monster, and then this card is returned to the owner's hand. So basically, it's kind of like a nice way to equip something, wait a couple of turns, let it get destroyed, and then this card will return to your hand. So you could activate this card on a Crystal Wing or some monster that your opponent is definitely going to keep out on the board. But anytime that they can use a card for other types of destruction, you want to watch out for that. So only equip Yugioh Drakemord on your opponent's cards if it's their final kind of version. They're not going to use the card to link or fusion or synchro or something into something else. Now moving on to our trap cards. First trap card we've got right now is 2 copies of Battle Scarred. Now, this is a very interesting card because basically this will allow you to target an Archfiend monster on your side of the field, and when you pay its upkeep cost, your opponent will take that card, or they will take that damage. And then if this card is removed from the field, you destroy the selected Archfiend monster out. And same as vice versa. If that Archfiend monster leaves the board, then Battle Scarred is also removed from the board as well. We also have 2 copies of Dark Smog. Discard a Fiend-type monster to target a card in your opponent's graveyard and remove it. So remember how I said we've got those Imprisoned Queen Archfiends? This is how you get those cards from the hand to the graveyard. So very, very good way to kind of work around that. And the final card we have for the Archfiend stuff is 1 copy of Archfiend's Roar. Revives an Archfiend from your graveyard by paying 500 life points, and then that monster is destroyed during the end phase of the turn. So as I mentioned, a great way to trigger cavalry, and even monsters that cannot be offered as a tribute. You can just swing them in and bait out an opponent's spell or trap card that they have set, and then go for the end. And then finally, 1 copy of Labyrinth of Nightmare. Really, really great card. You attack into your opponent's stuff, and then switch all your stuff to defense mode at the end of the turn to kind of shore up and protect your life points. So really, really cool card. And that's going to do it for our Titan Archfiend character deck. Do note there's lots of better ways to build Archfiends, but when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh! GX character decks, we want to make them as cool and interesting as possible. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please remember to rate, comment, and subscribe, and let me know what deck profiles you guys want to see next. But thanks so much for watching. This has been the Merman Master with the Team Time Riders Yu-Gi-Oh! channel, and I'm signing out. See you guys. Peace.